Before we start, we strongly suggest that you use your own judgment. The following is only for fun and learning. Inner City Press has published the exact words spoken in federal court during the Sean Diddy Combs trial. On the 9th day of Sean Diddy Combs' trial, Usher Raymond walked into the courtroom and people in the packed gallery started to talk. Many people thought he was there to give background character testimony or make the small details of the industry clearer. But what he had planned was something completely different. A planned surprise that would change the course of the trial in a big way. Usher was not originally listed as a key witness for the prosecution, but a last-minute legal motion saw him subpoenaed after federal prosecutors quietly got a sealed video recording he had been keeping private for years. People who know what goes on in court said that Usher had been thinking about the choice for weeks. He had kept this disturbing video locked up for years, not knowing if releasing it would do more harm than good. The man he used to look up to as a mentor had long since turned into someone he was afraid of and no longer knew. Usher said that the video was so disgusting and disturbing that it took him 2 full days to finish watching it. To even finish watching it all. His first words on the stand were simple but scary. "I was a child. I thought I was learning about the company, but now I know I was learning about something else." There was no sound in the courtroom. He didn't talk to him with anger. Instead, it was a grim calmness, as if he had finally let go of a heavy load he had been carrying for years. What came next was a terrifying story about his early years with Diddy. When he was only 13 years old and living in Diddy's mansion with the help of music industry elders who trusted Diddy to teach him, he remembered the late-night parties, the strange guests, and the feeling that the house had no walls. He said it wasn't just music. It was a place for grooming. He talked about waking up in rooms he didn't remember falling asleep in, security guards who didn't care, and being told to keep secrets if he wanted to stay in the business. But none of that was as bad as what happened next, which is why Usher was called. As reporters wrote quickly and prosecutors leaned forward in their seats, Usher stopped, looked at the jury and said, "I have something to show you." Usher said that he first got involved with Diddy in the early 1990s, when he was just starting to break into the business. His mother, who wanted her talented son to have a solid foundation, thought Diddy could help Usher navigate the murky waters of show business. Usher said she thought he could protect me and that he knew how to make stars. "I don't think she ever thought about what he was really showing me." He talked about how he stayed at Diddy's house for a short time while he was making his first album and the now famous Flavor Camp session. These were supposed to help artists grow, but Usher said they were really late-night parties for adults that were pretending to be mentorship retreats. He told the court about nights without sleep and strange rules. Young artists weren't allowed to leave their rooms after a certain time, and they often heard strange noises, crying after screams, laughter, or loud music. One night he was told to go to the green room, where Diddy was having fun with guests. There were girls in. He said he knew the girls from other music videos, but they didn't look like they were having fun. They seemed scared. Usher said he was told to sit down, watch and learn. He asked me, "Do you want to be great? Then learn how to take charge of the room." It wasn't just what Usher saw that shocked him, it was also who else was there. He said that many well-known people in the industry visited the mansion during those years, and some of them are now billionaires and household names. He wouldn't name them in open court, but he did say that he had told federal investigators who they were. Usher said during this part of his testimony that he had begun quietly writing down what he had seen and done. He started keeping track of certain events, dates and actions. He said that Diddy was at the center of it all. A man who acted like a businessman in public but did something much worse in private. Usher told the court about the video, which was given to him by a former house staffer who had worked security at one of Diddy's private estates in the early 2000s. Usher said that this video was not meant to be seen. Someone who was scared took it. Someone who knew they might go missing if it got out. Digital forensic experts confirmed the authenticity of the video earlier this week. It was shown in a private courtroom session, but Usher went into great detail about what was on it for the jury. In the video, Diddy is in a private room with red lights and a few men and one woman who looks very drunk or asleep. The woman is partly naked and not responding. People can hear Diddy laughing, giving orders, and even lightly slapping the woman and saying, "Wake up, you still have work to do." Another man in the room speaks up and asks if she's okay. Diddy says, "She's fine, she's just part of the scene." Usher said he got this tape 5 years ago and didn't know who sent it, but didn't know how to use it. He said he was scared for the woman in the video, scared of what it meant and scared that if he said anything he would end up in the same situation as other people who tried to leave Diddy's world. Diddy's lawyers kept objecting while he spoke, but the judge let the testimony go on because it was important for showing a pattern of behavior. Usher's words were strong, and there was proof in the form of picture. As news of the video got out to the press later that afternoon, the story spread like wildfire. The Diddy trial was already controversial, but now it was even more so, and Usher, who was once Diddy's prodigy, had become the witness that no one could silence. As a screen was wheeled in, the lights in the courtroom got a little dimmer. The judge let the footage in as evidence with a heavy sigh. Knowing full well how serious the situation was about to become, Usher pointed to the USB drive he had given him, steady but clearly upset. He said, "This is the video I've been holding onto for over 10 years. There was a dead silence in the courtroom. He didn't have to say it, this was the video." The video started to play. The video, which was about 5 minutes long, was shot with what looked like a hidden camera. The audio is clear, but the video is shaky and the lighting is bad. The setting was a fancy penthouse apartment. Diddy's voice rang out loud and sure as he spoke to a group of nervous young artists and assistants who were sitting in front of him. Diddy was pacing around without a shirt on, talked about how the business works in detail, explaining a system of favors, expectations, and consequences. After that, his tone changed. He started talking about rituals that didn't sound like anything you'd hear in a recording studio. He went from talking about loyalty and sacrifice to talking about getting rid of people who spoke out and fixing problems. "You speak out against the circle," Diddy said, "and your whole family suffers. Ask around. They know." The camera caught one young man in the corner shake. The next sentence made everyone watching shiver. "Ask Cassie what happens when you run your mouth. Ask Usher." The jury flinched. Usher stepped back from the monitor and wiped a tear from his cheek. He didn't need to say anything. That tape said a lot. What had once been rumors and whispers was now proof. The video was more than just disturbing, it was also incriminating. The prosecution took advantage of the moment. "Mr. Raymond, where has this tape been?" the lawyer asked. Usher hesitated. "I was scared," he said, "and I wasn't the only one." The courtroom was clearly shaken when the recording ended. Some jurors wiped away tears. Reporters had to be told not to live tweet. Diddy's legal team asked for a break right away, saying that the footage was out of context and very unfair. The judge said no. The damage had already been done. Diddy sat still, staring at the floor with his jaw clenched. He looked like a man who knew he might not walk free again for the first time since the trial began. The prosecution now had more than just testimony. They had a recording that showed the tone, the threats and the manipulation. It proved Diddy's power, his knowledge of the fear he instilled, and that it wasn't just behind closed doors. Usher testified. The video was taken during a mentor weekend in 2012, when young male artists were invited to what was called a bonding retreat. The defense rushed to say that the video was fake, but a forensic expert was already set to testify that the footage was real and had not been changed. To make matters worse for the defense, some of the people in the video had already been named in other lawsuits against Diddy, lawsuits that had been sealed but had just been refiled. That same afternoon, an anonymous witness who was reportedly from the video called the prosecutors and asked to testify. The floodgates were beginning to open. The courtroom was closed for the day, but the air was buzzing with a new energy. This was no longer a celebrity case, it had become a reckoning. As reporters gathered outside, one of them shouted, "Is this the end for Diddy?" A murmur ran through the crowd. Everyone knew the answer. Within 24 hours of the footage going public, despite the judge's gag order, leaks had already made it online. The reaction from the music industry was swift and divided. Some artists distanced themselves immediately. Drake unfollowed Diddy on social media. Beyoncé's team issued a vague but pointed statement about some people like French Montana and DJ Khaled stayed quiet, too quiet. The public was watching. Some of Diddy's music was pulled from streaming services for review, and sponsors connected to his business empire started canceling partnerships. Revolt TV's board called an emergency meeting. The king of Bad Boy Records was now radioactive. But the biggest shock came when Quincy Jones issued a statement. Quincy, an elder godfather in the industry, said, "That was a seismic statement. It wasn't just about Diddy anymore. This was about the entire structure." People were calling Usher a hero, not because he was perfect, he had his own scandals, but because he had the guts to break ranks. He told the press, "I knew I'd lose people I considered family, but the truth has to matter more." Still, Usher was scared. He had beefed up his personal security, and there were rumors that other artists were getting ready to speak out because of the tape. one of Diddy's producers, is said to have fled the country. The courtroom was set to resume the next morning. Everyone knew the cross-examination would be tough, but the conversation had changed. It was no longer about Usher versus Diddy. It was about an empire falling apart because of its own secret. The courtroom was still buzzing the next morning, but what Usher said on the stand next stopped everything. Usher looked at the jury with a heavy voice and lowered eyes and said, "In 2008, Usher found 13-year-old Justin Bieber on YouTube and helped him sign a deal with RBMG, a label he started with industry mogul Scooter Braun. At the time, Diddy was also interested in the boy genius, and Usher, who had called Justin his little brother, thought that involving Diddy would only make the young star more famous. But in court, Usher's tone made it clear. This wasn't about elevation, this was about regret. I watched as the same cycle started repeating with him, Usher said, the same parties, the same trips, and I thought, maybe Diddy's just trying to guide him, but then I saw the signs, the tension, the exhaustion, the fear. Usher paused, eyes red. I remember the exact moment I felt sick about it. Justin was 50. He came back from a weekend at Diddy's and wouldn't talk to anyone. I asked him how it went. All he said was, "It's different. He's different." Then he went to his room and locked the door. I'll never forget that. The courtroom was in a world where secrets are currency. This confession was priceless and potentially damning. The prosecution asked Usher why he hadn't stepped in. He said it was because he was scared, because he had already survived once, and because speaking out back then meant disappearing. You think we don't notice who disappears in this industry? Usher said. After Bieber's popularity skyrocketed, Diddy tried to get rid of Usher completely. I became unnecessary, he said. He had who he wanted, and I was just the middleman. Now I was useless. Then came the most haunting line yet. I wasn't just replaced by Justin, I was the offering. Justin Bieber wasn't in court, but his name was everywhere in testimony, in sealed documents, and now in whispers. Usher's comments made people very angry online. Fans wanted answers. What did Justin see trending within hours? But sources close to the trial say that Bieber may have seen more than anyone ever knew and may have been threatened into silence. Prosecutors brought up a now unsealed 2015 deposition from an unrelated civil case in which Bieber was asked about his time living with Diddy. The document had been heavily redacted until now. One question stood out. Were you ever in situations that made you feel unsafe while under Ms. Combs's supervision? Bieber's lawyer objected, but Bieber's response had already been recorded. I don't want to talk about that. When pressed, he added, they said I'd be sued, that I'd lose everything, and there's stuff on tape that they could use. Usher said that after a party hosted by Diddy in Miami, Bieber called him. He said there were cameras everywhere, rooms they weren't allowed to go into, and people he had never met before, including grown men, some of whom weren't even in the music business. But the most damning evidence may have come from a private text exchange between Bieber and an unnamed producer from Diddy's circle. In it, the producer sent a strange message that said you shouldn't remember what you saw. Too bad you left early. When prosecutors showed this message in court, people gasped. They asked Usher again why he brought Justin to Diddy. Because I thought I was giving him the world, he whispered. I didn't know I was handing him to a predator. Now, the public is calling for a statement from Justin Bieber, but sources close to the singer say he's terrified, and may have been under NDA agreements that kept his voice quiet for years. Usher said plainly that he was groomed, and we all failed him. The courtroom no longer felt like a trial, it felt like a reckoning, a final exorcism of a decade's worth of buried trauma, secrets, and betrayals, and at the center of it all sat Sean Diddy Combs, still, silent, coming apart. But Usher wasn't done. In his last moments on the stand, he spoke directly to the judge. This industry has blood on its hands. Michael, Whitney, Prince, Cassie, and maybe Justin too. We keep saying it's just drugs, just stress, just fame, but behind all of it is fear, control, and exploitation. Usher then turned to Diddy and said, you used me and you used him. For what? Power, money, a legacy built on silence and fear. The judge told the jury to ignore the direct address, but the damage was done. The energy in the courtroom changed. What had started as a case about Cassie's abuse claims had now turned into a huge web of celebrity exploitation, psychological warfare, and generational pain. In the days that followed, subpoenas were reportedly issued for others who had been part of Bieber's early career. A call was made for Justin himself to take the stand. Whether he will remains unknown, but one thing is clear: Usher's testimony ripped a hole in the facade. He had not only exposed Diddy, but also the whole system. When court ended for the day, cameras and reporters flooded the area outside. One sign stood out: "The industry isn't sick, it's dead," and Usher just buried it. More tapes, testimonies, and survivors would come, but it all started with one brave moment when Usher finally stopped protecting the system that had tried to kill him. After Usher's heartbreaking last testimony, the media storm turned into a full-scale explosion. The courtroom may have gone quiet, but outside, the ripple effects of what had just happened began to shake Hollywood to its core. Headlines screamed, "Usher named Diddy and Clive Davis in grooming web," and think pieces picked apart every detail of the testimony and what it meant for the music industry as a whole. But the most shocking thing that happened wasn't what Usher said, it was who came forward after that. Within 48 hours, 2 more former Bad Boy Records artists contacted the prosecution. Their names weren't immediately made public, but inside sources said both of them were male artists who worked closely with Diddy in the early 2000s and had long since disappeared from the public eye. One of them had reportedly gone completely off the grid, while the other was rumored to be battling addiction and had been in and out of rehab for years. According to leaked court transcripts, the new witnesses confirmed Usher's timeline, not just about Justin Bieber, but also about the private parties and the handlers, the surveillance and the rituals that had long been whispered about but never proved. One witness reportedly said, "This lined up too well with the video clip that was going around on social media of a 15-year-old Justin Bieber standing next to Diddy, looking very uncomfortable as Diddy brags, 'Do you know what I'm saying? I'm going to hang out with him for 48. We're going to do some grown-up things.'" People who had once thought the clip was just awkward humor were now looking at it frame by frame as proof of something more sinister. But it wasn't only ex-artists who were talking. A hairstylist who worked with Bieber during the My World era told a big news outlet about her experience without giving her name. She said that Bieber would come back from meetings with Diddy shaken and quiet, and he would often refuse to talk to anyone for hours. She said that one time he told her, "I don't feel real anymore. When I'm with him I feel like I'm someone else." At the time she thought it was just teenage angst. She wonders now if it was trauma. People were calling Usher a hero online at the same time, and condemned in secret. One unnamed record executive told Rolling Stone that he broke an unspoken promise. "We all knew, everyone was quiet, and now the whole house is on fire." Other famous people responded with careful support. Tamar Braxton, Jaguar Wright, and even Tyrese Gibson, all posted strange things on their Instagram stories, suggesting that they had seen similar things, but were too scared to say anything. Chris Brown liked a bunch of tweets that openly said Diddy and Clive Davis were behind a machine of silence. Even though he didn't say anything, it was clear what he meant. They were aware of something, and now, thanks to Usher, the doors were wide open. Kanye West, who had already testified earlier in the week, went all in on a surprise livestream the next night. Kanye, who was wearing a black hoodie and had no expression, said, "I told you didn't listen. They came for me, Mike and Whitney. Do you really think Diddy acts alone? Diddy is a foot soldier. You can't even begin to understand how deep this goes." Usher just broke through the first layer, but if you keep looking, you will see the devil sitting on a throne and smiling. Some people thought Kanye's words were just crazy conspiracy talk, but others couldn't help but notice how eerily they matched up with what was happening in court. The Department of Justice is said to have contacted Usher's lawyers to talk about his testimony and the evidence that was presented. There hasn't been an official investigation into Diddy beyond the civil and criminal charges he is facing right now. People who know say the federal government is keeping a close eye on things, and could step in if trafficking or coercion can be proven across state lines. And then there was one last twist. A major news outlet got a hold of a sealed document from 2017 that showed Usher had tried to go to the police before. The report, which was called Confidential Celeb Division, showed that Usher had made a complaint describing possible grooming and coercive behavior aimed at minors in Diddy's circle. No one paid attention to the complaint. The officer who filed it later quit the department. Now, with the whole world watching, those same warnings that had been ignored were being blasted across every screen and newspaper in the US. What had been quiet was now impossible to hide. Usher's choice to show the secret video testifying about Justin
And pointing the finger at the machine behind Diddy's empire shocked more than just the courtroom. It broke a decades-long vow of silence and gave people who couldn't speak up the courage to do so. The story had changed. Diddy wasn't just on trial for what happened with Cassie, he was now the face of something darker, something that had been going on in the shadows for too long, and now the shadows were yelling back.